Hello, Hurinfan here as an editor's note. This was three separate sessions recorded after each of the Gardens of the Moon episodes we did with Panda and Yasna. I'm not thrilled with the quality of discussion, but I wanted to release it anyway to get some feedback for future spoilers discussions between Ashaman and I. If you want us to talk about something specific, find us on Discord or add us on Twitter. It would be greatly appreciated. And with that, please listen. Okay, welcome to the full spoilers for the whole series, filled discussion of the first 7 chapters of Gardens of the Moon. Just Ashaman and I this time. So, what do you want to bring up first, Ashaman?
I just want to shout out the character that I changed my opinion on the most in the series, and I think she's introduced so well, Lazine. So we have our Empress, who started out as one of my least favorite characters. She ended the series as being one of my favorite.
We didn't really like her at
And
the beginning. Like, even her introduction in the prologue, she's like, oh yeah, she's Throne Master, and she's burning the Mouse Quarter,
yeah, I was like,
and
she's really presumptuous in my opinion. Like,
mm,
she's just taken over this empire. How dare she? I was getting offended on the Emperor's behalf, and I didn't even met him yet. um, I love the scene where Piran shows up in her throne room and she just kind of chill with it. I think that says a lot about her character even later on.
yeah, the more we learn about her, even in the ice books, it's just like she just becomes more than anything pitiable, right? So
Yes.
she doesn't even have agency, and she's the leader of the empire, right? Like,
Yeah.
the decisions she makes are it it makes me feel bad for world leaders, even if I think they're terrible people, and I think a lot of what Lysine does is terrible. But
Hmm.
what she does for a reason.
Yes, absolutely. She does to
And
keep the empire together because she believes in what it is.
not only that, but she's a woman who has her own fears and doubts about herself, and
Hmm.
she kills the emperor and the rope because she thought it was best for the empire, and then she kills everybody else who was with him because she's afraid that they're going to do the same thing to her.
Well, she kills a lot of them, but a lot of them disappear
Well,
because they think that
she doesn't actually kill anybody, does she? Right?
I don't actually think she does.
I'm thinking about, like, okay, she didn't kill Talk. She didn't kill any of the Crusts. She
Nope.
didn't kill Stormy and Gessler. All of the old guards, she tries to kill, but she fails at it. So you read the poem for the beginning of the first episode, and we know that the author, the meta author of the Book of the Fallen, is Kamitsa, the crippled god,
Hmm.
and the poem at the beginning of the book is just so perfect for describing, absolutely perfect for describing the entirety of the series in how many lines? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. And everything that this book is about could be understood just from reading this, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Erickson, it's clear looking back that he had a very clear vision for what he wanted the series to be, and in my opinion, he nails it.
Mm,
Um, it's like even with Gardens of the Moon, which most people would agree is his weakest book.
mm. Actually, this is my least favorite's House of Chains, but yeah, we talked about that in House of Chains episode. And then the second page of the book is Call to Shadow by Fellison. And in this poem, she literally tells us that Shadowthrone and Cantillon are
Yeah,
Elembed and Dancer.
yeah.
You
You
don't.
don't notice it till later. Yeah, that's incredible. He sets it up so well.
I know, and on my first read, I didn't catch it all because I think you're thrown by so many different names and locations and things that you didn't know that you didn't even notice. And I think on page, I don't know, in chapter 3, Callum basically says, "Hey, the Emperor and Dancer are actually Shadowthrone and uh, the Rope."
Yeah, I was wondering like, how did I miss that? Reading it
Mm,
this time was like he basically states it outright. But that's just speaks to Erickson's. I would call it sleight of hand. He's like Krupp, and in that way, he
well, he is Krupp,
he
right?
yeah, he provides you everything you need to know,
Mm.
but he hides it so well in what he says. And then looking back, you realize, oh, it was all along. Like he's really a master at foreshadowing.
Yeah, I wrote it down actually. Callum's gaze was veiled. Odd, isn't it? After all, the Warrens only appeared following the Emperor's assassination at Lassine's hand. Shadowthrone and his companion, the patron of assassins Cotillion, were unheard of before Caliban and Dancer's deaths. It also seems that whatever disagreements there is between House Shadow and Empress Lassine is personal.
Yeah.
Tattersail Tattersail closed her eyes. It's that obvious, isn't it? This is before page 100.
Yeah. Not exactly
Uh,
like a major spoiler for the series, but like, yeah,
no, no.
the entire book, I was wondering who these people, like who these gods were, and where the emperor went, and everything. And it's just he just tells you. It's right there.
So I'm not the biggest fan of the prologue of Gardens of the Moon, but when you finish the series, it's a perfect start because of the
Hmm.
way that he ends the book 10. Do you
It comes
remember how
full circle. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And
it
Fiddler's
ends
even
with
there.
Fiddler on the roof. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's not on a roof. He's on a dock fishing.
Oh yes, you're right. You're right.
But he's in Malaz City and he tells a boy and so Whiskey Jack tells Ganos, don't become a soldier, just be a pawn of the gods and you won't do anything. That's because Whiskey Jack's, feeling like he has no control over anything, right?
Hmm.
But at the end of the series, Fiddler says, "Oh, the world always needs more soldiers." I think he says that to the boy,
Yeah,
and I think that's
he's
beautiful.
resigned. Yeah.
That
It's yeah, it was a yeah. Looking back, it's a good opener and closing to the series. I agree.
it's just perfect because Fiddler, I think, feels fulfilled because of what they accomplished as soldiers, and Whiskey Jack didn't.
Yes, because Fiddler, like he accomplished something very tangible. He freed a broken soul, and that's really what the entire goal of the series was working towards, right? Like
Mhm.
providing compassion to those who don't deserve it, but those who need it.
So I talked earlier about
Agency.
thank you agency, and I think most of the in this book especially, anytime you see somebody taking action, it's out of compassion. So Riga, in her last moments of death, the only decision she has is to protect Sari, and she does that.
Hmm.
Uh, so Murillo and uh, Rallick, their choice is to help a friend.
Yeah,
Uh,
call.
Crocus, his choice is to become, not an assassin, even though that doesn't really, or not a thief. And,
Hmm.
that kind of goes out of the place. But I just seeing these little moments of what these characters can do, and despite the small options given to them, I think is really thing that we should look for in the series.
Yes, that was one of my goals starting this reread, to look for all the little moments of compassion that happen. And so far, I've been pleasantly surprised. It happens like it's everywhere now that I look for it.
Mm.
Like
Um,
Tattersail's feelings of failure, Taishren, even though it seems that at first that he's trying to kill them, he actually tried to save the bridge burners.
yeah.
Mhm.
Have you read the Ice books?
I read a few of them. I've read Return of the Crimson Guard and Blood and Bone, I believe it's called. Um, but I haven't
Why
read
those
any of the
two?
others. Because I thought Blood and Bone came after Return of the Crimson Guard, but it actually doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, Orbs of
um,
Chthon's the best, and it takes place in Darujhistan, or a lot of it, large part of it takes place in Darujhistan, and the Barbican comes up. But since you haven't read it, I won't say anything more than that.
mhm.
Also, do you know Hinter's Tower?
I don't recall. No.
Hinter's Tower is the place where Murillo and Rallick Nom meet when they're talking about their plan for
Okay.
Cole, and it's like haunted and stuff. And Hinter actually comes up in that book too.
Hmm.
Um, so we get early introductions to characters that we'll know later on in the series. Quite a few actually. Did you notice any?
Um, which ones? I noticed. I did notice some. Yeah.
So we Felison, of course. She's writing
Yep.
the Call to Shadow.
Hmm.
Gamut, the House.
Is it Felison? Is Felison the one like Peron's sister, or is it Felison younger?
I believe it's
I thought it was
Fran's.
Felson. I thought it was
Well,
Felton younger, but when did
you
she
need to look at
do
the birth
this?
date. So the birth date says 1146, which is 8 years before the prologue. So Fellis and
Oh, I guess that
Piano
would be at
Sister,
her, yeah.
yeah, would be 8 years old at that time. And Fellis and younger wouldn't have been born.
Hmm.
So there was a lot. Yeah, I'll just stop there. And we see. Does Fisher have a poem in this part of the book?
I'm not sure actually.
I don't think he does.
I do pay attention to the poems more this time around, but even so, like it's hard for me to keep them in my mind as I read.
I
But
agree.
yeah, like he sets up a lot of peoples and
Yes,
stuff as well.
chapter
Um,
5, Fisher.
yeah, chapter 5, Fisher. Yeah, and then he'll, as we all know, he will be a recurring character in the poems, and he will show up in Toll the Hounds. I think is his first time.
Yeah, he's in Total Hounds. He's
Yeah,
also, I think, Blood and Bone, right? Yeah,
and Blood and
he's in Blood
Bone.
and Bone.
Yeah, I think so.
No, it's a sail.
A sail.
Sail.
Okay.
And then they mentioned Dawson quite a few times, and they mentioned that
Yeah,
his daughter was taken by Hood,
I
Gambit,
completely
and
forgot that the
Salazar.
first time around. He showed up basically as a new character for me
Mm.
when he finally appears on the page. But yeah, going back now, it's interesting reading reading. You get enough of his backstory to know who he is before, like books and books before he shows up.
So you've got Gothos following here. They mentioned the
Hmm.
Queen of Dreams. They mentioned Osirk. Well, they didn't really mention Osirk. Osirk's Gate is a place in Darujistan. Did you see that?
No, I did not notice that.
Yeah, they walk through Osirk's Gate a few times. I'm like, Osirk, why is it called Osirk's Gate? Do you have any ideas there?
He's a legendary figure, and Urgistan is very old. Yeah.
And last thing that I mentioned was December. So I think Baruch mentioned December in a curse, and he's talking about
Mhm.
like it would make the god of what's December the god of? Lord of Tragedy.
Oh yes, yes. Of course, he's a split off of Decem.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. I
which
still don't
is
quite understand how that works.
that was always confusing to me. But gods have multiple aspects. Um, you also get you get mentions of the Wiccans and the Seven Cities being known for their volatility and stuff like that. Just very very sneakily setting up some of the stuff we're going to need to know for Deadhouse Gates.
Oh, last we meet Moby, who we know from book 2 is actually a demon soul taken.
Yeah. I don't think he's mentioned so far, is he? Not by name.
He's not mentioned by name. Uh, last, so we're. It was so hard to hold my tongue when Panda was talking about who she thought was going to be.
Oh my god, she got it right on.
I know. I'm just like, oh my,
Well done,
like
Panda.
she's much smarter than I was when I first read this.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That. Oh man, I feel like setting up for this. It makes me so much sadder. That's one of the most tragic moments in this series, in my opinion. And it gets set up, and we know it's coming now. Um,
Mhm.
that her story is going to end in the most heartbreaking way it could possibly have done. Um, that's one of the things I'm both looking forward to and not looking forward to on the reread.
Um, Talk. The first bad things in a long line of bad things happens to Talk in this first 7 chapters. He loses
He
his
meets
eye.
Karan. He oh yeah, he has lost his eye, yeah. Before the just before the action has taken place. Poor Talk, man. He
Can
just
you name
doesn't
a
get a
character
break.
that suffered more than Talk?
Like maybe Fellison.
No, I still think Talk had it worse.
I mean, like, yeah,
Fellison
like he,
had it terrible, but it's kind of stupid to compare suffering.
yeah,
I,
that's true.
I don't.
But he does have it. He has it so rough for so long. Like,
And then not only in one body, but in a new body, and then another
hmm.
body, and then afterlife.
He just doesn't get a break.
I'm glad that Yasna brought up the Mason of High House death
Hmm.
because I didn't want to, because I didn't want to be like, hey, maybe you should be paying attention to this. So do you understand the Deck of Dragons readings?
I understand some of them to some extent. I don't understand them all. I don't think anybody understands them all, right? Um, but
The first one's
the
easy.
yeah, first one I got a good handle on, I think.
The second one, so the cards are Orb, Virgin, High House Death, Assassin of High House Shadow, Opon, and the Crown. But I don't know what the Orb and the Crown are. So Virgin High House Death, we always did a sorry. Assassin of High House Shadow is Cotillion.
Hmm.
Which they're separate cards there. Which do you know why they did that?
I don't. Well, the Virgin of Hyoseth is set up again in the series with Sin.
Yeah, Sin.
Um, I think he uses it to draw a parallel between them, um, and like the tragic nature of them. I think the Virgin of Hyoseth is just a young girl usually who is linked with a lot of death and tragedy,
Yeah, I thought
and
so
is
too.
not necessarily like a big player in and of herself. Although, of course, Sin is. But yeah.
Do you know what the Crown is?
I think the crown is Darujistan, isn't it?
Oh, that would make sense. So
Yeah.
I think Orb is Kerul.
You think so?
I think I read it somewhere. I'm not saying that I sussed this out myself, but I believe, yeah,
That would make
Orb was the
sense.
card that
He's
Cruel was before he was, kind of forgotten, and that his coming back into the world is why it showed up in the deck of dragons.
mhm. That would make sense. And like the yeah.
Okay, so
Um,
Orb is Cruel, Virgin Mazda is Sorry, Assassin is Cotillion, Opon is Opon, and the Crown is Darujistan.
mhm. I was
Okay.
surprised that they didn't get the knight being Animander.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I'm glad I didn't, just spell it out.
Mhm. Yeah, same. I was gonna be obviously this is, but
Especially because they got the Mason part.
yeah. Um, yeah. Did you know that Animander is one of those characters that? Well, first of all, he started off overpowered in their playthroughs, although he was a PC.
Mm.
But because of readers' reaction to him in this book, Erickson decided to make him a much larger part of the story. I thought it was
Yeah, I did
interesting
see
that he
that.
hadn't written that out beforehand.
He was also originally a D&D character, and they moved him to GURPS.
Yes, yeah, and he was wildly overpowered the entire time.
So, I think the most I want to say the most cryptic, but one of the best setups I think is having Whiskey Jack as the Mason of High House Death, because later we learn that he actually becomes like the leader of the
Yeah, him and the original bridge burners become the gatekeepers of death
yeah.
after Hood abdicates.
So he kind of masons the structure that is the High House Death, right?
Yep.
Oh, those are all my notes for spoiler stuff.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to talk about. I will once the book is over.
Mm,
But this, as I said before in the episode, it's a lot of really good setup. Um, we get the really good stuff later. Although, again, like the Siege of Pale, like the amount of times that I rethought how it went,
mm,
even like books and books later, it really impressed me that Erickson continued to make it like a fresh and interesting puzzle for me to try and figure out, and for the
mm.
characters to figure out as they go along. And like again, like as with Lazine, um, Taishren was a character that changed my mind on a lot. Like initially, you hate him, right? But
Oh
he's not
God,
actually a
Tayshiren's the
bad guy.
worst.
He's not a bad guy.
No,
I
he's
like
not.
him.
But like when you
Yeah.
first meet him, you just think this guy is the worst, right?
Yes, absolutely. He killed all these people for no reason, right? And like he's the
But
reason
even
that
in this
like,
book, you see him another time, and he's just like out of his mind. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
yeah, well, no one knows what they're doing, right? Like he has so much power, but he doesn't know what to do with it, and he doesn't know how to use it. And it makes his appearance in Return of the Crimson Guard very powerful because I think this is like
That's the book where he
his
doesn't do anything, right?
yeah, I think his actions there are directly because of what he did here. He realizes he needs to take a step back. He needs to really think through if he's going to use his power or not.
That's a pretty common theme in the series, though. It's like people with power, like realizing how much power they have, and sitting back and think, like, what can I do with this? What's the best way that I could do this without harming people, right?
Yeah, when is it appropriate for me to use it, and when is it appropriate for me to just keep the sword sheathed, as Animander learns to do later in the series?
Mm. And I think that's what happens with Urisander and Mother Dark in the Harkonnens books as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a well. I wouldn't say Urisander so much, but Mother Dark, absolutely.
Urisander too. Like he's well, I don't know. Should we talk about the
I
Harkonnens books?
maybe not. We can do that spoiler talk when we do the with the trilogy inevitably.
Okay. But by then the Walk in Shadow will be out.
Yep. Oh God, I'm so stoked.
All right. Well,
Thanks for listening, guys, to our
bye.
the
See you.
ramblings. See you later.
Okay. So first off, we are recording this after we recorded our second episode for our listeners. And our last episode, or our last part of this, we'll edit it all together. But was part one. We recorded it after our last episode. There are a couple things that I want to point out that we did not talk about in the last episode, and that is the first hints that we get as to Quickben's identity. And readers of the whole series will recognize that we still don't know who Quickben is or what Quickben is, but when he is doing his hairlock stuff, we notice that he's using Corald Galen, which is the Warren of Darkness and the Darkness of the Taistendi. So it can only be assumed that he, at the very least, has a Taistendi soul inside of him. Um, do you want to talk now about the Coria Delath theory?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Let us know what it is.
So the for people who have read Forge of Darkness, they were introduced to a character called Coria Delath, and she was to be a Maibi, or a vessel for souls, and she had lots of dolls, and she had a lot of dolls, and the theory is that Coria Delath is somehow connected with Quickben, and I imagine she was one of the souls that he consumed during the
Yeah.
trek across Raku. But that doesn't. So I'll just go through the points that people make when I agree with all these, but it still doesn't quite fit, right? So he is Ben Adafan Delat, and her name is Coria Delath. So those are similar. Uh, like I said, they both play with dolls, and he does doll stuff throughout the whole series.
That's true.
I believe at one point he also mentioned playing with dolls in his youth. Uh, so he is a soul taken. Quickben is, and I don't know if this has been.
What's his form? Do we know?
I believe his form is human. Like I think him shapeshifting all of these souls is his soul taken.
Huh.
Uh,
That's an interesting idea.
there are scenes in uh, the Crippled God where he's like he rubs his face a lot and then he says something, and then he rubs his face a lot more and then he says something. And I believe when he's doing that, he's shapeshifting into these other souls that are inside of him.
Hmm. I always just assumed that they were like completely melded within him. So like all the souls had come together to form one mega personality, and that is Quickben.
I think he has
But
like access to all of them, but like at the same time he could shift between them at will. And does when he meets Amanus in this book, does Amanus call him shapeshifting? When is that in this book?
I don't know.
All right, let's go. Let's go next.
This is the only time that he meets Manus for a while, though.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would get killed.
So yeah, in the last episode, Panda was saying that she was wondering, or was it? No, it wasn't Panda. It was Yasna, and he was like, "Well, if the Shadow Realm was really new, then how is he like an old?" And we learned that in, I think book 4, right? No, maybe book 6. I think Bone Hunters. Do you remember?
That what?
Well, he was a shadow priest before, sort of like with
We learned that I think in Bone Hunters, yeah, because it's Lostara Yiel that tells us that. I think.
No, it was the rope. It was Cotillion, and he was talking about how he was never forgiven by Amanus for leaving it, but he was in league with who is the name of that from book 4 that Karsa rips the balls off of.
Oh yeah, him, the child molester.
Yeah.
Bidthadal?
Bidithal.
Bidithal.
Yeah, because like
There we go.
he was with
Another
Bidithal.
one of the true villains of the series.
Yeah. Yes. So he's got a connection with Bidithal there, but I forgot the details. But let's go back to Korea. Uh, so this is a scene from Fallout Forge of Darkness. You could do nothing more for her, Korea Delath, said Rusk. We can feel the essence of her soul. It is dark, empty. It has no power. She is not a child of Mother Dark, nor is her soul. For the darkness that dwells there is not Kurald Galen. It is simply absence. Yes, perfectly so. Then what awaits it, Korea Delath? Rusk demanded. In the language of the dog runners, Rusk, I have fashioned a Maibi, a vessel, protected, sealed, and as you say, empty. What remains to be done while it's filling, of course. So, what doesn't make sense to me is why would he take the name? And was he known as Ben Adafandalet before he absorbed these souls?
This is a good question. I don't know. I don't think it's mentioned in his origin story.
The origin story that we don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting theory. I don't think we have enough data. I think we'll see when Walking Shadow comes out.
I think we'll definitely know in Walk in Shadow. There was one more thing that we didn't really talk about, and that was the Sister of Cold Nights, Night Chill. So Night Chill is an Azathanai, and that is also Sister of Cold Nights, who
Yes.
becomes Tattersail, who becomes Silverfawn. But I don't
It's
really.
the weirdest thing to me. Like it must be just a weird thing about Gardens of the Moon that like she dies so easily for an Azathanai. You know?
Well, look, I mean, Krul is dead in Gardens of the Moon, right? So it's not like these beings are all powerful, right?
I wouldn't say he's like dead, but like in like some kind of starvation coma. That's how I think of it.
Either way, I mean, she's lost a lot of her power.
Yeah, it's because of the curse that Kalor bestows on her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So I wanted to. I'm definitely not saying that when Panda's talking about Whiskey Jack's true identity, but it's a great hint as to Iskar Jarak's identity later in the series.
Ah, yes, the man of many names.
So Iskar Jarak, I believe, is another type of bird that steals, right?
Is it?
Right. A Jarak was a type of bird found in the city of Lethris through short-beaked, yellow-plumed, and graded. Yeah, there's a nice. Yeah. So there's a little hint there.
Yeah.
In chapter 8, we see the Spar of Andi.
Ooh, big location that'll come up again later, but is hardly really remarked upon.
Yeah. As we know from Forge of Darkness, I believe, Spar of Andi was where Hood's wife was sacrificed in order to create the Warrens, right? No, it was used to create
No.
the Gate of Darkness.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Basically. And yeah, we have there another character who I deeply hate.
The Errant?
Yeah. That guy's a. That he might be my least favorite.
I in the whole series, my least favorite. I mean, Bidazol is up there, right?
I like he's like he's super evil and stuff, right? But like he's just a human. So like I don't know. The errant is a being of godlike power who just wants to make everybody's life worse.
How about Snell?
Snell, Snell. He's too young to be
But he's a
truly despicable in my opinion.
psychopath, though, right?
He is, yeah, and yeah, I have a lot to say about Snell, but I wouldn't put him up there as like one of the worst people in the series. You know, I mean he's somewhere in that list, but I don't think he breaks the top three.
I don't know. What things stood out to you?
The things that the thing that bothers me the most about Gardens of the Moon is how much of a vendetta Shadow Throne and the Rope seem to have against Lysine, when in the later books they don't seem to care, and yeah, like yeah, it's just another Gardens of the Moon thing, of course, but
I think
yeah, it seems to me something could be revised somewhat.
I don't think Erickson forgot about that because it's kind of an important, really part of that. But I think it's since they've become gods, I think part of their journey is becoming less and less human, right? I think
Yes.
after they become gods, they care more a lot about what I guess petty human concerns. And I think as they move away from that, it just becomes less important.
I could buy that, but at the same time, like they seem like to be wanting to destroy the Empire, which they worked so hard to build it, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know their motivations there.
Um, yeah, we also have here the nice. I like the setup for Raced a lot, uh, and the direction. So okay, I think it's really sad the adjunct dies. I think Lauren and Tool could have been one of the better, for lack of a better word, romances in the series. Um, just going off and having adventures together. They could have been like the Honorak and Troll, or the Talk and Tool of the series. I It was an excellent decision for him to kill off the character, in my opinion, but it seems like the ones you get here really just drive home how much of a tragedy it is that she dies.
I'll probably have more thoughts about that after our next episode, but I'll just. So she has a lot of opportunities to stop doing what she's doing, and
Yes.
she's always thinking, you know, this probably is wrong, right? This is wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is wrong, right? And she still goes through with it, right? Even to the point of going to Jerusalem and planting the finest, which I guess it was the savior of it all. But maybe I think Mies and Arilta are the ones that kill her, right? And
Yeah, I think so.
I, I'll have more thoughts about the next time because I really don't know how to parse her involvement and what her death means.
She's a really good character.
I agree.
And of course, she needs to die to make way for Tavor, who is one of my more favorite characters in the series.
I love. I was thinking about Devore, and I love her, but I did not love her for most of the series.
I kept waiting for her to do something. This is like, are you gonna finally do something now, Tavor? No. And then, she just ended up being awesome. I don't know.
She's the woman leading armies with what a charisma of -3.
Something like that. Everyone just hunch that she's doing it right.
Uh,
Yeah. One of the things here, I love how everyone mistakes Caladan Brood for human, or
they,
like a
they say
human
that a
dragons.
lot, like oh half human
Mm-hmm.
or the human. He says that twice in the book, I believe.
Yeah. And it's just like, no, this guy isn't a Sathanite. He is more powerful than Rake, maybe.
Maybe.
He's definitely on the top tier of power scale in the series. Although, unfortunately, we don't really get to see him unleash it ever, which
The
I think is a shame.
Yeah, we do in the Forge of Darkness, or maybe Fall of Light.
Yeah, yeah, he throws down a few times.
Uh, did you notice in Chapter 9 we get our first mention of Olar Ethel?
Yes, the only Bonecaster who speaks. Incredible. Yeah. Olar Ethel is a character I have a lot of thoughts about, but I'll save for later. But yeah, I
Yeah,
caught that.
yeah, I think probably have to. So I believe it in book 2 we find Olar Ethel and she's the dragon, the undead dragon that they
Yep.
ride. And in book 2, I can't wait for Panda's reaction to that. It's just an undead dragon.
I remember my reaction to that was, what the hell is going on? Just
You don't even
going
know
to the
until
war,
book 3, and you don't even know in book 3 unless you're paying close attention.
Yeah, because she doesn't really show herself or who she is like until the ninth book, I think, something like that.
She doesn't even show herself for who she is in the ninth book. Are you talking about? Are you talking about the scene where she claims to be Byrne herself?
Well, kind of. Like, yeah, there's a lot to her character, obviously, and a lot of it isn't gotten to even in the Book of the Fallen. You have to go to Carcanas for a more complete picture of her. But
Like
you
a
start
really
like getting,
disturbing picture of her.
oh my god, she's like several scenes from that have stuck with me, to say the least.
Uh, the epigraph of chapter 10, I think you read it with
Hmm.
Calor and Callida Brood.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the only times in the series where an epigraph is literally a scene that you see later on in the series.
Yeah, I think so. There are like a couple times that epigraphs are repeated in some way or stuff like that, but yeah, this is a scene that happens in Memories of Ice that is just stuck in here, and I wonder if he wrote this epigraph first or if he wrote that scene first. I don't know.
I didn't want to bring attention to it, but the chapter 9 epigraph was. So chapter 8 and chapter 9 were both written by Talk. The chapter 9 one was Talk about Tool. I didn't want to bring it up because, because it's kind of spoilers, even though it's not. You know what I mean?
Um, this bit I am reminded. Uh, this is off topic, but I'm reminded just how unsatisfying it is for me that Bellerdan is the dying god. I wanted so bad for it to be Hairlock. I was thinking that would make so much sense. That's what I thought at first, but I don't know. It's just this sad boy to black eye. You know.
I agree with that, and especially the Dying God is just a god in Book 8 that's trying to
Hmm.
ruin everything, right?
Yep. And you don't really get like a feeling that Bellerdan would want that. Like he doesn't seem like that kind of guy, but Hairlock certainly does.
I'll, I think we'll have something to say when we get to Book 8, but
Hmm.
which is the best book? Don't at me.
I disagree, but I don't. I hope I'll have the experience that so many people say they have when they get to book 8. It's just it becomes the best because it was the most sloggy for me getting through it the first time.
Did you get a feeling that all of the information that Talk or that Tool was giving Lorne, not say all of it, but a lot of it was useless?
A lot of it is very misleading, and I like that. It's you get not like he doesn't tell her strictly wrong information, but it's not the whole picture, and it's definitely not what he tells her is what he thinks is the truth, but it's not the whole truth, and I like that motif that comes up a lot.
Not even that, but a lot of it just felt like him rambling. So
Hey, he wants someone to talk to, man.
no,
He's been alone for so long.
I think he was kind of doing it as a joke.
Yeah,
Well,
I
he's
do think
incredibly
that Tool
sarcastic with
messes with someone.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's incredibly
his
sarcastic with
wit is as
Lorne.
dry as his bones.
So like I'm reading through this and it's actually kind of boring when he's just talking about like history, like it's coming from a textbook. Like there's some really interesting stuff in there that I'm like, oh, you're talking about the First Empire and getting the Talani Mas and the founding races, but then he goes into like the clans and their clan names and these people who are in the clan and who
Oh yeah, the stuff that will never matter.
yeah, exactly. I'm just like, why do we need to know this? Why do you need to know that you were the first and this guy was the second and he came after this other guy?
I'm also surprised that he doesn't mention that he's the first sword in this, which was like he mentions that in book 3, right?
Sorry, was that?
That he's the first sword
Yeah, it
of
didn't. I
the
don't think he said
yeah,
that.
which maybe another Gardens of the Moon thing that Erickson revised later, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting because that's such an important part of who he is.
His like aura is like a Gardens of the Moonism, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah, never shows up again really. Like he does have an aura later when he gets Talanified by Olar Ethel again, and then he draws a bunch of Imas to him. But yeah, it's not the same. It's not this anti magic field.
speaking of magic fields, the so Lorne and Tool are looking at the conflagration of all, and he's naming off all of these warrens,
Mhm.
and a few of them don't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I just attributed that to like the I thought of that as just like Warrens exist on some kind of spectrum, and
there was the Hythier and the Talon, and they kind of drew in other Warrens with their power, but it doesn't really make sense. I can't think of a way to parse it.
Talon, Thyre, Denul, Driss, Tenez, Thelman, Telbukai, Starvold, Demolain. So Tellan, I assume, is there because of his, his influence, his Gardens of the Moonism sphere. Thyre is there because of Tattersail, but Denul, Driss, Tenez, Thelman, Telbukai isn't a Warren that we ever see, but I mean, Bellarden wasn't.
Yeah, what does Bellarden use?
I suppose Thelman, Telbukai. But Tennis and Driss and Denul.
Yeah, Denul is healing. I don't understand what that's.
Maybe Nightshield had access to those warrens, but I thought Azathan I used blood magic.
Yeah, I don't think. Like, I think they can make use of warrens if they want to, but they don't need to. They just have so much inherent power.
Well, what stood out to me is when Crone visits is like the next scene. Crone visits Kaladin Brood's camp, and she made a mention of somebody using, I don't remember what warren, maybe it was Tennis, but somebody using that. Maybe they're close enough to Kaladin Brood's camp that the magic there was also involved. I'm not sure.
They were pretty far away from Kaladin Brood's camp.
But why would Erickson mention it in the next scene, right?
I don't know. I would very much like to ask him what was going on there. I don't know. Maybe he mentions it somewhere in an FAQ or something.
Right.
Or maybe he just decided to keep it mysterious because that's just who he is. If you don't understand, you haven't been paying attention. That's not my fault.
What wonderful professor. So there's one part that I don't think is ever explained, and I don't understand it whatsoever. But in this scene, and it might have to do with the title of the book as well, which I still don't quite understand, and I'd like to talk about that in the next episode. But so when Tattersail is being born, Krupp mentions this sorcery belongs to the moon.
Yeah, no, I read that, and this time I was like, wait, what? What does that even mean? The moon doesn't have a warren. Or any magic as far as we know. Maybe it's just Krupp being a romantic, saying meaningless things.
I don't think so, because moon is also capitalized. And I think Erickson's very, very deliberate with his use of capitalization.
He is.
I have no ideas, and I'd like to hear some theories. If anyone's listening, please tell me, because I don't know what the moon magic has to do with Tattersail's. Is it moon spawn, or is it, the story of the Gardens of the Moon from... Also, I believe that there is a god we meet in one of the Yinsi Alsmont books who is, like, associated with the moon. Blood and Bone, I think it's from. But I have no theories.
Yeah. I think it was really interesting how Huron helps the hounds escape from Dragnipur. I don't understand why other people don't use that loophole, Like, why doesn't Draconis just go through that portal and then, into whatever else the chains would be disappeared, but, he's Draconis, he can do whatever he wants.
So I thought about that, and Perrin was asking Opon how to get them out, and Opon was just theorizing that maybe if they jumped in there. But, like, the way I interpreted that is that someone couldn't purposefully go in there. They had to be accidentally. Does that make sense? It's like they get the hounds to walk. I don't know. I have no idea. But they had to be tricked into going in there, right?
I just attributed that to them being hounds and...
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, they're beasts, right? So maybe beasts and other beings, since I have no idea.
Yeah, it sort of trivialized Dragnipur to a very small extent for me, because, he kills them and then, like, 10 seconds later they're free and alive. But Erickson avoids redoing this ever again, which I am grateful for.
Speaking of trivializing, it bothers me a little bit that nobody dies in this book. I mean, I'm speaking, some people actually do die. But Pearl, we meet one page, right?
Yeah.
Kalat dies, we meet him in one page. Tralakafar, the assassin, dies after one page. Perrin dies, he's back the next chapter. Tattersall dies, but she's not really dead. Bellardin's dead, but he's not, well, he learned later that he's not, you know what I mean. Nightchill died, but she's not really died. She's not really dead. And I think that's a
there's
valid
Hairlock,
criticism.
but that's about it. Yeah, I agree.
And especially in
I
other
think-
books, Erickson has no problem killing off characters that you love.
Yep. Well, Lauren dies.
Lauren does die.
Lauren is an important character who dies.
Lauren is an
And
important
that
character.
death does have an impact.
Yes.
But
it just seems like it's over and over and over again the trope of nobody stays dead.
Yeah, that's fair. And this is the only offender in the series I can think of that really does this.
Hedge comes back.
Hedge comes back, but I feel like he earns his
I agree.
comeback.
It was really good. Yeah, there are a few characters that come back, but yeah, I don't feel like theirs were cheap. Whereas this one, it comes off like that.
He does manage to do the resurrection thing in the series without making death inconsequential, and that is very difficult to pull off. And I would like to tip my hat to him for that. Because I haven't really seen that done in another series where a character comes back and it made death not just unimportant.
I don't like the series. I don't dislike it, but Night Angel, I think they handle the resurrection pretty well.
I read the first one and stopped.
I won't go into spoilers, but yeah, I think the sacrifice necessary for that did have an impact on me. But that's just a tangent. Chapter 12, we get the first mentioning of the crippled god. And who was there but Hood and Decembre and Anomander and his 5 black dragons and Silana and
everybody else.
Yeah, Yasna pointed out. I still don't quite understand the timeline of it. Because how old is Dasimultor? How old is Decembre?
This was just the last chaining.
Okay.
The chained god, the crippled god was chained many times.
But I know that there were quite a few, but he talks about when he's reading that section about the time the crippled god came down and then he was chained.
Yeah.
Like I could interpret that as like, yeah, those people were there at the last chaining, but what about the first? Because he also mentions the first unchaining and how it brought down, all this destruction. Maybe they're just skipping through because that's what he's doing. He's asking for brevity. I thought it was funny how.
I think that's how we have to interpret it. It might be like a small timeline error, but yeah, because December isn't around until like 20 years ago or something like that.
And I'm ashamed to say it, but I never noticed how close Dasimultor and Decembre's names are.
Yeah. Like they're right there.
Okay, so is there anything you want to bring up first?
Oh, no. I think anything else. Wait, okay. How about this? Ralik Nom gets the auditorial dust in his skin. And it's implied that that's going to have an effect on him later, but in Toll the Hounds, it just doesn't show up,
Yeah, it doesn't come.
Like I'm angry about that. I was waiting for 8 books when I first read this because I was like, Ralik Nom was originally my favorite character because he's just this assassin guy, right? And no, he just continues being an assassin guy, and I want him to get cool rust powers.
Yeah, it also took 7 books for him to come back.
Yes, him and Vorkin. I like Vorkin. Vorkin's really cool.
You need to read Orb Scepter Throne because yeah, that one's the best of the novels.
Yes, I do.
Vorkin's in it.
Oh, excellent.
It's got lots of assassins and
another incentive.
Lots of Segula too. Let's see. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of notes. So in page 551 of my book, we learn about the Gardens of the Moon, right? And one thing that stood out to me, and I could just be grasping at straws, and I probably am, but Sari says that Grolin is the person who protects the moon or protects the gardens. And I think that sounds an awful lot like Grizzin.
Huh. I hadn't thought of that. That's
So
interesting.
Grizzin can
I thought
fall.
didn't Grizzin get killed by the Fork Rule of Sail? Or that's one of the theories, at least, right?
I don't think it's been confirmed. I think later on in the books they say that Grizzin hasn't been seen in centuries, but I'm not sure
Hmm.
about anything there. But Grizzin and Grolin kind of sound similar, and I think Grolin protects the gardens on the moon, and Grizzin Farl is the Azathanai that protects ideas. So maybe Grizzin's
I like that
protecting
idea. I hope he
the
revisits it.
maybe.
That'd be nice because, like, maybe in the sequel trilogy, because like it showed up in this book and then never again, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a lot of things. I also want to talk about that, comparing Garden's Moon to the rest of the series,
Hmm.
because it's quite a bit different.
Yes.
Like it's a good introduction in a lot of ways because it's just kind of throwing you in, and in that aspect it's a pretty good way of showing what the book's like. But others, not so sure.
Yeah. No. I wish he at least addressed the differences in Gardens of the Moon.
Mm.
I'm not sure if he's done that ever publicly, but I would like to see his thought process behind revising some of the things that he did, like the Talan Warren around Tool and Quick Ben's Warrens and stuff like that.
Did you notice we got a Hibork?
Oh yeah, he was mentioned once, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think it was an epigraph, chapter 20.
Yeah. No, I like all the seeding of little things that Erickson does throughout the book. Like there's mention of like a Wiccan horse, I think.
Mm.
Yeah. And several times the Seven Cities are mentioned and how close they are to rebellion, especially at the end. And the Panyan Seer is mentioned before the end as well.
I hope if anyone's listening to this, they could inform me in my ignorance. But when we learn about Icarium in Gardens of the Moon and that he has a
Mhm.
Trell companion, they say that Anomander saw him 800 years ago, and he was with Osirk. And
Mhm.
that was the first hint we got to the feud between Anomander and Osirk. But I'm not sure if we ever actually learn what their feud is.
I think we'll learn in Walk in Shadow.
Could be.
I think that's where it's going to happen. Because yeah, I'm really curious to see how Osiric gets to where he is now. Because at the end of Fall of Light, he's kind of like a dweeb, and now he's this uber badass who is the equal of Animanderic. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that happens.
A dweeb with father issues who fathered a son with father issues.
Yes. Do we ever find out what Ikarium's machine in Darujistan is for? Is it part of the whole coins thing, or
I think that one's just a clock.
is it just a clock?
Maybe when he I'm not an expert on what the hell happened with Icarium in the end of Reaper's Gale,
You're right.
but from what I understand, he enters the machine and then he creates a new magic system with the power of his blood, but it's time aspected.
Is
And
it
a
time
lot of
aspected? Okay.
yeah, I think it's time aspected. And so he gets in the machine and then he creates the I guess the new warrant. I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, and so we get like little glimpses here and there of all of the machines that he made in the past, and they were
Mhm.
kind of connected to this major machine, right? But I'm not sure that every single thing that he made was actually part of that, you know?
Oh, okay. Do we ever find out like why he did that, or like how he even managed to when he was forgetting things all the time?
I hope to on my current reread.
Yeah.
I hope some listeners could help me out because that's by far the most confusing aspect of the series, in my opinion, at least for me
By
so
the
far.
yeah, by the time I got to Reaper's Gale, forgot that he made machines at all. So I was like, "Where is this coming from?"
Well,
But
I want to
I'm
go
glad
back
that
to
it's
the
set up.
yeah. I wonder if it'll go into Walk in Shadow or not Walk in Shadow, the Carsa trilogy.
That'd be cool. I'm really excited to see the new magic system because it doesn't really get explored besides like a little bit with Sin and what's his face.
But yeah, what is his name?
We'll find out in House of Chains.
The future first sword of the Empire.
Yeah.
I don't think he's actually mentioned by name in the House of Change. Grub.
Grub, yes. Sin and Grub. They explore for a bit in, I think, Dust of Dreams and a little bit in The Crippled God, and then Sin goes insane and Grub never mentions the Warrens again, I think.
Yeah, that's why we know their aspect, their time aspect, because when they enter the Warrens, they keep saying, like, they keep running into, I guess, I don't want to say visions of the past, but they keep running into like past entities and stuff that were obviously in the past.
Huh. I'm really excited to read that again.
So yeah, I want to go back to the Osric and Anomander one. So I'm not sure that it is a feud that started in the Walk in Shadow, because from what we've read, they traveled together for millennia after that, and then they started having the feuds, and then they broke apart.
Okay.
But like this is another timeline thing where Eric kind of does what he wants, and it's left us to piece things together.
Like there's a lot of things that happen in Carcanus that I thought would happen a lot later or a lot earlier.
And a lot of things in Carcanus that are directly contradictory to stuff that we've been told before.
Yeah. And who do we believe? I'm not sure I trust Blind Gallon, but
I don't. That's why I love the beginning of Carcanus. He's like, yeah, I don't remember everything, and the stuff that I don't remember, I'm just going to make up. So you can't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still want to believe at least some of it,
I want to believe most of it, but there are a lot of details that.
Is it just turning into a Carcanus discussion?
Yes. So we get the Lord of the Ghislaine, and I don't know. I really wanted more demons in this series. I was expecting them to play a bigger part, but like we get Apt in the next book, and then we get a few demons in Midnight Tides, and then I think that's pretty much it for the series, right? And, except for Grey Frog. Grey Frog is cool.
There are always demons, but they're always kind of secondary characters. And
yeah,
I know what you
mean.
I would
like them to be fleshed out a bit. Yeah, because like they're just creatures from other Warrens, right?
Yeah, and we get quite a few. Yeah, I agree.
Especially the Ghislaine. I would have liked to see the Ghislaine more. Does the Lord of the Ghislaine show up in Dragnipur in Toll the Hounds? I don't remember him being there.
He doesn't. He's never mentioned again. That's another one of those Gardens of the Moons things that kind of just doesn't show up again, and I wish it did, because we only get like one. Of course, it's Gardens of the Moon, so it's really dense, and they have really small pieces of information that you can only catch on rereads. But we get that he might have some sort of connection with light because of Anomander's words to him before he kills him, right? But that's it. And like, is he a demon from Kurald Leosin, or is he in league with the Leosin? I'm not sure.
I think this is the last demon that we see Taishren summon, right? I don't think he summons demons ever again, at least from what I've read.
When's the last time we see Taishren?
The last time I read him, I think, was in Return of the Crimson Guard, but I assume he's in.
He's in a lot of the. I meant in the 10 books.
Oh yes, in the 10 books, maybe Memories of Ice.
I think he's mentioned in Bonehunters, but I don't know if he ever shows up.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Which is a shame because I really like Taishren. I think he's a very interesting character.
You should read the Ice novels.
I do need to read more Ice novels, yeah.
He's there a lot. Yeah, I agree. More demons would have been nice.
More Imperial demons, especially. I was expecting them to be a bigger part of the army thing, because we
got like, Pearl and we got Lord Ghislaine in the same book. They were both really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Although I guess the Malazans running out of mages thing accounts for that.
Yeah.
Do we ever get why they've run solo on mages? Is it just, I don't know,
attrition? I mean, they keep killing them.
That's true.
Well, let's see if somebody shows even the slightest bit of
what's the word? Disloyalty. She just kills them off or sends them to the Ojotaro Island.
I mean, fair.
Who wants to work for that, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, she wasn't even paranoid enough because the claw got infiltrated.
Yeah.
It was really a no-win situation for poor Lysine.
Poor Lysine, but she's also kind of useless at her job.
Hey, not in Return of the Crimson Guard. She gets stuff done.
Yeah, and then she gets killed.
Then she gets killed.
I mean, Return of the Crimson Guard is the one that she died, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's her book being really proactive and trying to right all the wrongs that she did, but too little, too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, she wins the battle at the end, and then I think she kills someone very important, and then she gets murked from behind because Possum is useless at his job.
I like the end of that book because Malakrill has to acknowledge
Make
the
peace.
Wiccans. Yeah.
Okay, but we should get back to Gardens of the Moon.
Okay. So Raced is a
Yes.
So I think so. He wakes up, right, and you said it in the main podcast. I didn't say it because I want to bring it up here, but he senses burn and he punches the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine thing. Whatever. But I think that is. I don't know if Erickson had the idea of burn being a proto Emas at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe he punches her because she's proto Emas. That's just an idea I had.
Like, yeah, we don't know how much Race knows about burn, so it's interesting to think about. I don't know why he has so much contempt for her. Do we know how old he is at the start of Carcanis? Because burn is already a thing in Carcanis.
How old Raced is?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I imagine pretty old.
God, Raced is an old guy.
He was probably around when the Jaghut had civilizations, I imagine.
Yeah, maybe.
Was he the son of someone important?
Gothos?
That's Icarium, right?
No, Race is also Icarium, is also Gothos' son, I think. Hold on, let me confirm that.
I'll make I think Icarium should meet his half brother.
That would be hilarious. But then you would have to get inside Nazath, and that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Race is, yeah.
Good for
God. I don't even know
Gothos.
who his mom is. Yeah.
Had sex at least twice in his life.
I mean, Gothos is basically like a first-year university student that's just taking Econ 101 and is trying to impress girls with it, right?
I have this really great idea, guys. We should just abandon civilization.
Society is just like a social construct, man. We should get rid of it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write the world's longest suicide note explaining why.
I just had the idea that
never gets over it.
Well, so his suicide note's a joke, right? Or at least a half joke. Maybe the anti-civilization thing is a joke that all the other Jaghut just took way too seriously, and it got so far that he can't,
he can't back up now.
Back out.
Yeah, he literally destroyed their entire civilization. So what's he gonna do?
Lord of Hate. So I think there's a clue in Gardens of the Moon that Hood is a Jaghut.
Yeah.
So the first one is Perrin goes to the Hood's Gate with Opon, and they meet with Hood's Herald.
Do we know who that is? We do, right?
Yeah, I think so. He's the guy that gets messed up by is it Carson? No, I forgot. He gets messed up, and he gets thrown out of High House Death or High House Death.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that guy was Jaghut. But when Raced meets Karul later on, he says to him, "You remind me of Hood," which means he knows Hood.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's a Jaghut, I don't know.
All Jaghuts know other Jaghuts, right?
So there's the first clue, I guess.
I was really surprised rereading this that Karul was just willing to, kind of die again, just like that, to get rid of Raced. Because in the rest of the series, he's pretty active in trying to fix the world, right? And especially save Kamensad.
Well, he says in Memories of Ice that he learned of compassion because of his interactions with Krupp. So maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, maybe.
The last thing I want to bring up is the foreshadowing of Moonspawn being destroyed because Ikariam's calendar marks that the year of Moon's tears.
Hmm.
I think
Like
that one's
later in
the
the year.
most
And
obvious.
yeah.
We don't know how long Ikariam's years are.
I'm surprised that Animander didn't find a way to get the weapon systems of Moonspawn up.
He doesn't have the right sword hands
Yeah.
to interact with the controls.
He's not smart enough, probably. Do we know how much he knows about Moonspawn? Like, does he even know it's a Forkrul Asaith? No, not it's a Kachan Shamal thing.
Probably. I mean, enough other people know it, and he's been around long enough.
That's true.
Plus, yeah, he's got to, because when the Tyston D invaded the, I don't know what should we call the Malazan world, whatever.
I
When the
have no
Tyston D
idea.
first came to the Malazan world with the Tyst Eater, and they had the big battle with the Kachan Shamal. The Kachan Shamal were in their Skykeep, so he had to have known, even though he wasn't
Right,
at
but
that
that
battle.
was that was with Silchus Ruin, another character I love.
He probably just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Silchas is cool. So it's interesting.
So Raist mentions that he could have enslaved Burn. That seems pretty big. Like, do we can any god have that power? Like, are they all just deciding to leave Burn alone, or what? Do we know?
I don't know.
Because you figure like someone would have done it, right?
See, I think because he's a tyrant and he's gathered so much experience doing things like dominating other people, maybe he has extra, power to overtake and possess people, like he did Mammoth.
That's true.
So he's especially powerful, and he knows how to do that, and he's just sick enough to do it when you compare him to other people. I got no idea.
I would have been really interested in seeing how powerful Race would have been with his Finnest.
Yeah. That would have been scary.
Yeah, he takes on 5 dragons easily with like just his, I don't know, however much power the Jagat left him.
Are all Jagat as powerful as Raced?
No, I don't think so, right? Because there's this one that gets awakened in one of the mid books and then dies a couple pages later.
Yeah, that's true. Quite a few Jagat are killed by the Talani Moss.
Yeah. Although the Talani Moss are definitely just willing to die in the thousands to kill one Jagat. But you gotta admire their commitment.
So probably just Raced and Gothos who are that powerful, maybe? Hood?
Oh yeah, Hood probably. Because he was the he's on the throne of ice.
I
would imagine he probably is the most powerful, right?
I don't know. Gothos put that giant ice sorcery over Lethra.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. But he just kind of just doesn't do anything with it, right? Of course he can't. But
it was an interesting decision to leave Hood to Deadhouse Gates, to not have him show up when Paran is at his gate. I wonder why he did that.
I don't know. That was Hood at the prologue of Deadhouse Gates.
Yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah.
Like it was an avatar of Hood. Yeah, so Mammoth is referred to as both a high priest of Drek and Driss. What's up with that?
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, at one point he's like I think he's referred to as high priest of Driss most of the time, but at least one time he's referred to as high priest of Drek. And as we all know, Drek kills all his worshippers later, which is I don't know. That's just a thing I noticed this time.
Is it a mistake, do you think?
I don't know. Maybe it's just a mistake that's lasted until now. Erickson just refuses to revise Gardens of the Moon.
I didn't notice that. I just saw DR. Does Driss and Drek have any relation?
I don't know. But like Driss is much less important character than Drek, right? Yeah, just mentioned in Bone Hunters and Stone Wielder, it seems.
It's got to be a mistake, right?
Maybe.
Can somebody be a high priest of 2 different gods?
I don't know. I think Mammoth's the only one who would be.
And I can't imagine Drek and Driss like that.
No. Like he seems to be like kind of a bad high priest because he never really does anything relating to his gods. He just is a historian.
He just sits all day in his room. But I guess it's probably good for the gods, right? If he doesn't ask anything of them.
Yeah, but you'd think they would want something of him.
I would love to talk to Erickson.
Yeah.
It's like, is this a mistake or
Mistake
can
or
you explain
intentional?
Could you explain this to me? Where's the bone phones?
Bone phones. Oh yeah, it's
Why
never
did they
used
use the
again,
bone
right?
phones again? Oh, why is there an aura of Talon surrounding the first sword?
Yeah.
On my current reread, I'm going to pay closer attention to all of the first empires that are mentioned and try to figure out which first empire is which. I think there are 3 first empires by
Are
that
there
name.
3?
There's the first empire of the Talani Moss, which supposedly came before everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the first empire, Decimbalacus, and that was on 7 cities. And I think there's at least one other first empire.
Did Calor have first empire, or
I don't know if he called it the first empire.
because he's mentioned in Carcass, right? Like
Yeah, I think so. They talk about Calor, the High King, or something like
somebody
that.
that seems to be Calor, yeah. Which draws really weird. I don't know, because it seems weird to me because that would imply that humans were around at the same time as the Moss.
Yeah, that always threw me for a loop because
Calor is human, right?
Calor, he looks human at least, but
what is Calor?
He can't be human, right?
I don't know.
They've made it pretty clear that humans are the descendants of the Emas.
Yes.
And the dog runners are the...
I'm always curious as to why Calor is with Caladan.
Calor is really good at his job.
Yeah, but like why, like what's he doing with them? What's his goal? Does he just want to be around people? Is he lonely?
Yeah, imagine. Calor's POVs are really interesting in Toll the Hounds.
Yes, he's an interesting character, that's for sure.
I had this theory for a long time that Calor wasn't actually that bad of a guy, and that he simply placed all of the blame. So he didn't actually kill his empire, and that the millions of deaths on his hands were like a metaphorical death, like since he was the king and all these people died because of him, and he killed them. But the more POVs we get from him, the more I think that he really was just a total and he might have just actually killed those people. Like he still could have like taken blame for the crippled god coming down and people trying to take him down and all the people dying and then using their blood as a curse on the Zathanite. But I really just think he's
Yeah. No, I agree, and he's a really good character though. I like him a lot.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on this guy who used to be the big bad. He's still around, but you can't kill him.
He's just too good of a soldier, right? Also, the Crimson Guard show up here, and I think it's the only time besides Midnight Tides that they do, right?
Yeah, I think so, because they're mentioned in Memories of Ice, but they're just like, hey, they're not here. It's more of an explanation for why they're not there. And then we meet Blues and Midnight Tides, and I think that's the last time we see the Crimson Guard in the 10 books.
I was so disappointed. Yeah, especially for Memories of Ice, because I was stoked to see the Crimson Guard that they had so much trouble with, like team up with the Malazans and really do some damage. But instead, Kaladin Brew just brings in the Mott Irregulars and calls it a day.
The Mott Irregulars are cool though.
They are hilarious.
And that's part of why I like the Ice books, but I still think that they're cooler and more. They came off as more impressive in the little that they were in the Erickson books than they were in the.
Yeah, I agree. Because in this book, Cowl out assassins Surratt, who's apparently pretty good at her job, and then they're talking about how they wreck everyone that they come to contact with, like the Gold Moranth, who are the elite fighters, and every Malazan that comes to contact with them. And then Iron Bars shows up in Midnight Tides and kills Coin Guy.
Coin guy. Yeah, that's his new name.
Coin guy. Just like really easily and then walks off.
Well, this has been our rambly spoiler talk. If you have things you wish us to talk about after the Dead House Gates episode, please tell us, because it's obvious that we don't really know what we're doing. This is Hurinfan signing off. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Music is Galactic Damages by Jingle Punks.